Did you know that the name derives from Mandaraj?
Seems to derive no pleasure from the act itself.
Satisfaction could a reader derive from an ending like that?
I derive much consolation.
Can derive a repeated vectoral sum.
All the other criminal elements from whom my uncle derives.
Pixies, meaning elves.
Whose deaths we derive the benefits of civilization.
Derivation thereof.
If I can derive an equilibrium.
In fact, I think the fighting spirit of the 701st derives from it.
Madras. Did you know that the name derives from Mandaraja, the realm of the stupid?
Courteous to experimenter.
Ink.
Seems to derive no pleasure from the act itself.
Incorrect.
What sense of hope or satisfaction could a reader derive from an ending like that? So in the book,
I derive much consolation from the fact that my colleague, Mr.
The geometric metaphors can derive a repeated vectoral sum. This was yours.
Imagine racketeers, sex fiends, dope addicts. All the other criminal elements from whom my uncle derives his
Now,
support.
Adam, you're being unfair. I never said that.
It's no great matter to get it on it. The word pixelated is an early American expression derived from the word pixies, meaning elves. They would say the pixies had got him, as we nowadays.
Only regrettable deaths. And from those deaths, we derive the benefits of civilization. Benefits we can afford so easily.
For consumer, recreation service, or any derivation thereof. The divers, they're still looking for the cab. As soon as they find it, they'll pull.
Is that John? And she's about this high.
See, if I could derive an equilibrium, where prevalence is a non-singular event.
Of yours have an incalculable effect upon the morale of these men. In fact, I think the fighting spirit of the 701st derives from it. No, maybe that's but it was just born in them.
Square root of 0.077a squared minus 0, from which we derive the square root of 0.077a squared. And also, the uncertainty in p is equal to the 6.
Hysteria. Derived from the Greek for uterus. Much studied by the French. There's a late command.
Quality to the air. Its particles of dust derived from unmodern constituents.
Pedigree. And when you find him evenly derived from his most famed of famous ancestors.
Been saved. Jacking up banks. I can see how a fella'd derive a whole lot of pleasure and satisfaction out of it.
A la mode. Mode is derived from Latin modus, meaning due or proper measure.
Frank, shut up.
Richard.
Olive, can I tell you a little?
Come, Mr. Bond, you derive just as much pleasure from saying kumquat as I do.
Why would you?
Well, if you're deriving your satisfaction from talking about your work instead of actually writing.
System of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not from some farcical aquatic ceremony. Be quiet! Oh, but you can't expect to wield
I am a rich and cultured boy. My wealth derives from tricking knaves and selling coffee, tea, and slaves.
Boring shit.
I know, Pop. I'm such a giant disappointment.
You honestly derive no sense of purpose from what we're doing.
Okay, what are we doing?
Obviously I derive my inspiration for the metaphor of the fugue, the loop.
Force. And force, my friends, is violence. The supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
My mother always said violence never...
Wet.
Well, kind of damp, anyway.
The first lesson to be derived from this present war is the futility
Is
of...
this something at General Wallace's?
Appomattox, 18...
And it basically says that aberrations happen. You can drive yourself nuts trying to derive meaning from things that have no meaning to begin with.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes...
Give you breasts. An asset from which I derive not the slightest benefit. I was let out to be suckled by a peasant girl.
In the U.S., 104 men, last name any standard derivation of your mathematician Carl Gauss, reported over $500,000